Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Liam Sharp Day, so we're looking at Death's Head 2, issue number 3 of the regular series, cover dated February 1992. Starting off with the cover, we've got Neary inking Liam Sharp, so I definitely feel like we're getting a little bit more authentic Liam Sharp, at least on this cover here. Still a little bit of that West Coast style hatching, but not so much. And just with the way the rendering is done here and the fine details on these faces here, and even on Death's Head, a little less exaggerated and image-like. Just showing off a little bit more of what Liam Sharp can naturally do and more of the style that he's working in today with his modern comics. I'll be definitely interested in checking out. I didn't check out his Conan run, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to look at his Dark Ages run on the Spawn titles. I'm interested in that. So every once in a while, like I said, when guys that I really like do some modern stuff, I'm going to be getting that. Greg Capullo, by the way, is working on a new Creech miniseries. Can't wait for that either. I've been collecting pretty much all the modern Greg Capullo stuff. The last stuff was the Wolverine series he did. Can't wait for Creech. I'm hoping that's the next thing coming out. Don't know if he's working on anything else for a big publisher like Marvel or DC right now. So, following last issue's guest starring of the X-Men, we're just continuing on the story here. Tuck has been mind controlled by Wrathchild, as we see here, right? And he's basically telling her to kill Wolverine, which, you know, he probably doesn't know how hard that actually is. There's something, you know, again, there's a constant battle with Liam Sharp in these books between the Image kind of West Coast look and his natural style, and a bit of the Simon Bisley stuff that he's doing, right? So there's some pages where I just feel like when you look at the inking, right, it's just very kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not gratuitous, but formulaic, I guess is how I'd say it. It's not quite natural. You know, when you look at some Jim Lee stuff, it feels like it's his natural style, but here it almost feels like it's an aesthetic tacked on top, and the lines are maybe just a little too thick, and it doesn't quite work and doesn't quite define the volumes as well as when Jim Lee does it. Even though, you know, it is kind of a weird style to define volumes, Jim Lee is just more adept at it, I guess, than guys who are trying to copy him here. So on these pages, I feel like there's more of that going on. It's almost like bad Wildstorm hatching with a thick pen, a pen that's a little too thick for what they're doing. And then you get instances in the background here where it works really well, but it's a little bit different. It's almost more like that Todd McFarlane thing that he does there, where the shadow kind of fades off and you just throw a color there. Always some interesting layouts from Liam Sharp, though. He's really trying different stuff, right? And stuff that he's still doing today. I feel like when he does his Conan books and that Dark Ages book, that he's going to be working on soon. But hey, then you get a money shot like this, a very 90s turn your book double page spread. And again, I feel like we're getting a little bit more of Liam Sharp here and his more naturalistic style, not, you know, more illustrative and volume defining in its use of hatching and thinner lines than what we get from before. Pretty cool. I didn't know he could do this. He's like growing an extra arm out here. That's fun. And most of the issue is pretty much a slugfest between Death's Head and these Cyber Ogre dudes. Of course, Wolverine's going to jump in and help out as well, right, in the violence fest, I guess. And we're getting a lot of blood and violence all the way throughout, I guess because these guys aren't human. The Comics Code doesn't mind. Or did the Comics Code even apply on Marvel UK? It doesn't seem like it, right? I guess because it was published in the UK? Well, that would make sense. And then, like I said, sometimes you get flourishes where I don't feel there's any Jim Lee at all in the representation here, and even kind of the dark, messy kind of inking with some white medium added on top there. This is pretty chaotic and fun, I think. I thought this was interesting, just the pure kind of contour silhouette of Wolverine also being the border of the panel. I don't see a lot of that, and I think it works pretty well here. It's odd, but it's fun, you know what I mean? Clearly, Liam Sharp is trying some different stuff and having some fun on this one. Great panel, just as far as the point of view goes, right? From the back here at the top and 3-point perspective going down, really well done. Again, very Jim Lee-ish in the inking here. And just look, way too much dialogue, I'll say, but just the interesting kind of panels and layouts that he's using and the overlaps and stuff. He's really trying some interesting things with the layouts. Great double page splash here. This character I've seen before in another Marvel UK title, maybe. Her design always kind of stood out to me and I thought was fun. I'm not quite sure what she's from. If anyone knows, let me know. But yeah, the X-Men once again surrounded by these more of these cyber ogres, I guess. I mean, Cyclops is way too ripped. I don't want to say way too ripped. I mean, it looks fine, but you know, Liam Sharp definitely draws him as a huge kind of bodybuilder where no one could call him slim, right? And then there's those shots where I feel he's just literally looking at some Jim Lee stuff and interpreting that. This was fun. I hadn't seen this a lot and in a while. I feel like this is kind of like that turn the page splash, reminiscent of Spider-Man issue 16, the all turned issue that McFarlane did his last issue at Marvel, right? Great kind of shot to the throat here, blood kind of out of his mouth. Very 90s, this whole panel here, very dense, right? Bodies on the ground, Wrathchild in the background there, but really well done. Not quite sure. The rest of the book seems to be full bleed, right? Why all of a sudden we get a panel like that? There must have been some sort of production issue or something, because I definitely feel like that was, you know, brought in rather than, you know, probably having been intended by Liam Sharp to be a full bleed kind of splash page. It's kind of weird and interesting. Just aesthetically, it kind of makes things weird, I guess is how I'd put it. Something slipping here in this drawing. I don't know if it's, you know, deadlines or something, but yeah, the lines are getting further and further apart, and this feels kind of quickly drawn. Also, there are other inkers involved in this issue, so maybe, you know, the less talented inkers, the ones doing this page or this panel. This shot here almost feels lifted a little bit from an Art T-Bear shot of Cyclops. I could be wrong on that, but, you know, again, deadlines, maybe you take a pose that's up close and put it in the background. It's not so obvious that you're swiping it. This guy's dreads and these things that are hanging out are just completely disgusting, aren't they? They look like weird alien penises or bits of his intestine or something. Just pretty gross. Which is fun though. Like I'm complimenting it. It's a good, interesting design. If they were wet and kind of, you know, splashing around, that'd be even more disgusting. He does something weird with Wolverine's mask where he adds these kind of, not quite sure why. And I mean, they've really been milking this X-Men guest starring thing, right? They were the last issue. They're in this issue. You know, Wolverine, Spider-Man guest starred in the miniseries, at least in a future, alternate future kind of thing. But it really feels like they're kind of in this issue and last, riding on the coattails of Jim Lee and the success of that first X-Men issue and subsequent issues of X-Men drawn by Jim Lee. Fairly popular all throughout his run, 1 to 11, I believe, and then moving on to Image. This I thought was fun as kind of a composition and a shot, but also kind of funny because, man, that's like just an insane amount of wedgie that she's going through here. So we get Dr. Necker again in the subplot. I guess we'll be meeting up with her pretty soon. Or she'll be meeting up with Death's Head. I don't know why this guy has an A on his forehead. Is that supposed to be Captain America? Maybe we'll find out next issue. Another interesting vehicle design. The ones we've seen all throughout the miniseries and the regular series, I've always pointed out because I think Liam Sharp does some interesting stuff there. And one last thing I noticed here, I feel like this is a stat of a panel we saw last issue as well, right? Maybe deadline issues once again. I could be wrong on that. I have to actually go back and look, but I really do feel this is pretty similar or almost the same as a panel from last issue that was probably a bit bigger. Here it's been shrunk a bit as the last panel. But hey, anything you can do to get through pages quicker when you're working artist and hit those deadlines, I'm not going to fault you for that. See, here's a shot where, you know, it feels like they took their time a bit more. Maybe we have the main inker doing this stuff rather than the extra guys tacked on to finish the book. But the inking seems a bit tighter and cleaner as far as that West Coast hatching look goes. This here, you know, I'm not exactly sure if that's Death's Head and part of his face has been ripped off or something, but definitely, you know, it's got the Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee hatching, but it feels a bit McFarlane-ish as well, which I haven't really seen in Death's Head. So hopefully I see that next issue. Is that maybe Wrathchild with part of his face ripped off or something? We'll have to find out next issue, right? I'm actually genuinely curious about that. Something about this where it's kind of I hate it and like it at the same time. Like some of it seems a little bit amateurish, but the Hulk face is odd, and but his body, the proportion stuff I kind of like. Some of the hatching, I don't know, something about this that I love hate. I'll put it that way. There was some interesting art from Marvel UK for sure. Here's Brian Hitch early on in his career, already doing a pretty good job there. But if you notice some of these faces, still kind of doing an Alan Davis kind of vibe in his art. I mean, as far as painted art goes, this is pretty sweet. Deathlock looks pretty cool there. I like that eye. Almost looks like, just realize it now, the Deathlock kind of looks like Eddie from Iron Maiden, their mascot. All right, well, there you go, guys. That's the end of my review of Death's Head 2, issue number 3. If you're still watching and you are subscribed, you're still hanging around, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all your support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second, and it helps the channel grow, helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Speaking of comic books, check out my comic books, Big Baby and STARCRASHER, on my website, KINGCOMICS.CA. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know in the comments. If you have details about something I talked about, an answer to one of my questions, or just some interesting tidbits about this book, about Liam Sharp, or anything related to what I talked about today, feel free to write to me and I'll try to comment on that and respond as quickly as I can. So there you go, guys. Thank you once again for watching the videos, and have an awesome day.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.